Like, why do you think you didn't struggle with it like they did, like many of the others did?
Well, I did struggle, but I think I was lucky in a way that my struggle was condensed, put it that way. I left the floor voluntarily. I started working for an investment company as a trainee, and I went through everything most people go through. My boss was the same age as my clerk when I worked on the floor and all that stuff. So I went through that initial struggle, but I accepted it and I knew that's the way it's going to be because I voluntarily went. I'm going to launch a new career and, I have to pay my dues. But what happened to me was I was visiting the floor of the American Stock Exchange representing my new company on 9/11. And I happened to be on the street when the South Tower collapsed. So I was in the middle of all of that. And so the emotional damage of that was tough. By November, my firm came to me and said, because my business was working with people on the floor, that was my platform. And my firm came to me and said, John, you're not bringing any business anymore, we have to let you go. So within 3 months, I went from being the star at the new company, everything going great, to being out, not only being out, but having no place to go to because the American Stock Exchange wasn't a place to go back to at that time. And that was, for me, it was a six months maybe, that I was knocked on my ass for 6 months. For a lot of guys, it was 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And that's, I think, is because they kept thinking it wasn't over. I mean, I was like hit in the head and knocked down and got back up rather than being, tortured by 1,000 cuts.
What would you say to people that are kind of struggling with this transition?
I've always had a philosophy, and this is the philosophy of my radio show, which is don't give up your daydream. And I always used to say, everyone needs a thing. You need something. You need something outside of what you do to make money, something outside your family, something for you, something selfish. And I've said to my wife on numerous occasions, me starting to write probably saved my life. Because I would be one of those sitting in Brannigan's, drinking a beer, saying, oh, I never caught a break kind of thing. But I had that vehicle to go to. I had something, and it couldn't be World War II history. You don't have to do anything creative. You don't have to write anything. You don't have to play the violin. You just have to have something outside yourself that I think it feeds you, It sort of fills the hole. Yeah, you need a passion. Everyone has passion. They just don't know how to funnel it or how to channel it.
Did you always know you wanted to be a writer?
I always wanted to write, but I never thought that I would be a writer.
And when you first wanted to write, did you know right away that you were going to write about the financial industry?
Well, I had sort of a strange path to doing it. My first book, The Vig, was my story for a long time. It was my story. When I'd be driving, if I was in traffic on the highway, I'd be thinking, what would this character be doing now? If I was jogging, whatever I was doing in idle time, I would have my story. So I was writing the whole time. I just never had the impetus or the courage, and it does take courage to do this. I never had the courage to really say that I'm a writer. That's a big thing, saying you're a writer. That's very big.
How did you get that courage?
My wife encouraged me to take a writing class. So I took a writing class and I joined the intermediate class, even though I was clearly a beginner. And this was people who had already been published. So what I did, which was sort of deceivious, was every time there was an assignment, I would wrap one of the chapters of my novel that was in my head into the assignment. And I would, if it was in third person or if it was a narrative, I would put one of the chapters in there. So I would put one of the chapters into the assignment. What I found was, as we went around the table doing the reading, not that people were in tears or there was no spontaneous applause, but I was one of them. I was there with them. So that's when I got the courage to say, I'm going to write, and I'm going to write a book. And that's what it did. So, 11 short years later, you know,
Good. Very good. All right.
All right. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
good.